Hello, thank you for tuning into our YouTube channel. I just want to give you guys a quick disclaimer. These early episodes on YouTube are going to be the early episodes of our podcast. A lot has changed since when it comes to the audio. So it's not going to be of the same quality. Not saying that it's bad, it's just not as good. However, all the content is still the same, so I'm sure you guys will enjoy nonetheless. Thank you. Make sure to like and subscribe, please. On this show to get caught up while providing an outlook for others possibly in the same sinking boat, or you're just curious of how our mission is going to go. And Caitlyn, what is our debrief going to be in reference to this week?
This week's objective takes us to the oil fields of Little Boston, California in the early 1900s as we tackle Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. So this is a film that I don't think either of us have seen it, have we? Until this week?
Yeah, this is a mutual shame.
Mutual shame. Why haven't you watched this one? Why is this the first time you've watched this movie? So this came out in 2007, right?
Yes, 2007, one of the highest regarded films of one of my favorite directors, Paul Thomas Anderson. I've seen a lot of his other works. One thing I want to say is the runtime on this is a bit longer, but so are the rest of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, so I really can't say much on that. Honestly, I never watched it. I knew how good this film was. I knew how great this film was supposed to be, but I guess, the topic of it and everything, it's just nothing that, up until this point that I've actually gone and watched. It's just something I kept putting off. Most of the time that I'll put this off is, because of the runtime. And then I just wouldn't think of it on another day hey, I gotta watch There Will Be Blood. Like, for some reason, I watched The Master before this one, which is, I believe, a longer film and drier film as well. Not sure why I watched that one first. I think it was because of Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I think that's the other thing with this film, too, is that there weren't really many performances I was really looking forward to until recent, like Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis. I always heard was great, but he doesn't really act in much, so I didn't know him.
Yeah, I think that was another reason why I haven't watched it, or one of the reasons. I'll get into the other reason in a second, but Daniel Day-Lewis wasn't an actor that really excited me. I think the only thing I really knew about him was that he's super method, which kind of, for me, when I hear an actor that's known for being method, that doesn't really gain my interest. I think there's a good quote from Robert Pattinson that he did an article that why are all the method actors always method when they're playing assholes? And that's what I always think about when I hear an actor like, oh, they're super method. So I don't think Daniel Day-Lewis, having not seen many of his films, I think the only one I've seen before is Gang of New York, before I even really knew who he was. But I don't think he's an actor that really excited me. I do like Paul Dano. And other things I've seen. I don't think I realized he was in this film, though, until I started watching it.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much Paul Dano was in it until I started watching it. Daniel Day-Lewis, I knew, of course, was in it. But yeah, like you said, method actors, same for me. Actually, if you didn't mention that quote, I was about to say, I was like, yeah, it just seems like method acting is just an excuse to be a jerk to everybody on set. If you think about recently Jared Leto as the Joker and all the weird things that he did, whether it was true or not, he still did some weird things to people on set. So I wasn't really, too sure. But yeah, he definitely method acted for this one for like 3 years. I read 3 years somewhere, and then I read another, he had a year and a half to prepare for this role when he was casted. And he is a method actor. Like, you can see it in his discography. He takes years to make a single movie. As an actor, a director you can understand, but as an actor, yeah, it's crazy. He doesn't have that many credits.
He doesn't, but he's always heralded as a main actor, and I think we can go into that a little bit later as how we rated his performance, but he's definitely a big name, I would say, but he doesn't really have many credits to his name. I mean, he does have credits, but his output isn't as frequent as many other actors that I would say I enjoy. Another reason for me why I just haven't had a chance to watch this one yet is I think I hyped it up for myself. So the first time I heard about this movie, something you might not know about me, is one of my favorite television shows is Boardwalk Empire. And so when this was suggested to me, it was suggested as, oh, if you like Boardwalk Empire, you'll really love this one. And so So I had a feeling I was gonna like this movie. I mean, for me, that's big shoes to fill if you're coming at me with that kind of suggestion. But I do think there are some similarities in theme between the two media. So this is a film that I had in mind that I was gonna like, but I just felt like I never had the attention span to really do it justice. So I just kind of kept putting it off, even though I knew I was gonna like it. And spoiler alert, I actually did like this movie. But yeah, so that's why I hadn't seen it. But it definitely has been a film that has been very critically praised. So I think it was a good choice for this week's objective to tackle.
You said something right there. You know, critics love this movie. That's one of the reasons that we chose it. You know, one of the reasons, you know, we finally watched it, you know, just looking at its accolades alone, like this is just known as one of those must-see movies. This is in the top 250 for IMDb. It's number 145, which is tied with a bunch of films all the way up to 105. So it's still up there. 2 Oscar wins and 6 Oscar nominations in addition to it. When I was looking up this film, when I was doing my research, this kept coming up as the top movie of the 21st century and one of the must-see movies, you know, ever. And of course, this comes from a great director. I already said, you know, my favoritism aside, this is a director who has had a lot of claim to fame, Paul Thomas Anderson. Man who doesn't, you know, he takes his time with movies and he makes something that he's fully invested in. This is also his highest grossing film compared to the rest of his films. Not his highest rated one. I mean, it's off by like a couple percent, but it's definitely, you know, it's definitely known to be his best film.
Yeah, no, I've actually not seen a lot by Paul Thomas Anderson. I think after watching this, though, I definitely want to look into his filmography a bit more.
Yeah, we have that coming up. And as future objectives, there's a lot of his films on there already. Like, I'm excited for when we talk about Boogie Nights. I think Boogie Nights may still be my favorite PTA, but The Master has one of my favorite movie scenes. Looking at The Master, I could see like doing that, what was considered my favorite scene in The Master, I can see it was no challenge to him because he did it so much in this film as well.
So what was your overall opinion of the film after having watched it, finally?
After finally having watched it, yeah, this was a great film. This is a film that I liked a lot. It is a beautifully shot, directed, the performances given. Yeah, this is when like I said, I'd never seen anything from Daniel Day-Lewis before. And I always know that, you know, he was, you know, this great actor. I never seen him. I didn't know the guy, so I wasn't taking anybody's word for it. But after seeing this, yeah, method acting, it pays off. Hopefully he was kind to everybody on set, but it definitely paid off. And Paul Dano, I've seen him in some other things before that made me want to go ahead and see more of him. I'm excited to see him as the Riddler in Batman. He was fantastic as well. This was just a very well-made movie. And I know you just, you know, you gave the little spoiler there, but why did you like this movie so much?
You know, the plot for this movie, you know, there really wasn't a plot. I think I said this in our questionnaire episode. I really like movies that have a simpler plot and really examine character, and I think this did that. I think this was definitely a character study, and I think it's one that I thought about long after the credits rolled, and just the not only because we're talking about it here, but just, you know, the themes that were brought up in the film and the whole idea of blood. I think this is one where the title, There Will Be Blood, has a couple different meanings to it. So there's a lot of different themes, there's a lot of different motifs in the film, but I think were just so excellently handled. And Daniel Day-Lewis' performance and Paul Dano's performance, they were amazing. You know, I was a little skeptical at first because the performance was a bit like larger than life, but I think that was the character. I think that was absolutely the character. And I think another thing that he did well was, I think he really acts with his body. Like, his body language is so well done in this character. And I think there were moments in it that were very, you know, heartbreaking. I mean, it definitely made me feel things with some of the things that happened in this film. So I think it was excellent.
Yeah, and talking about the title, There Will Be Blood, I was kind of wondering, I was like, talking about oil, how much blood is there really going to be? For one, yeah, there is a good amount, but this movie should have called There Will Be Head Trauma. Because so many people get hit upside the head with something. And whether it just leads to straight up death or it just leads to somebody just looking messed up. But yeah, there will be head trauma in this film. I think also just the dialogue between the individuals just was immersive. You know, like how you kind of look for those spooky moments in horror, you look for those action moments and, you know, those fights in the action movies. The dialogue in this film is what I was looking for next. I was like, man, I wonder, what is this guy going to say next, and how are the people around him going to react? Because there was a lot of one-on-one conversation. There were things always going on in the background, but the cinematography never showed you what was going on in the background. You could just hear it, and that kind of upped the tension as well during that, because you're wondering, like, hey, is anyone from the outside going to have to go ahead and intervene in this, or is this just going to remain between the two? I think I was a little bit worried about this film at first because it does start off a bit slow. You got a guy who's just climbing in and out of a hole, literally. And I was sitting there for a second, I was like, man, where is it going with this? And then something happens, and I think it sets the tone for the rest of the movie, where something can go wrong at any moment. And honestly, this movie doesn't go 30 minutes without there being some kind of catastrophe and something, you know, where he's gonna have to deal with this, or he's gonna have to somehow move forward from this. It's more so like the people around him are the ones getting hurt rather than he is. So it always has that tension. Like anytime you see a character around him, you're kind of just worried for it, because he just brings in, you know, tragedy.
Just to give a brief, spoiler-free synopsis, this movie follows Daniel Plainview. That's our main character, played by Daniel Day-Lewis. And he's an oil man. He makes his money drilling oil. And he goes to this small town. He gets a tip from this boy called Paul Sunday, played by Paul Dano, to go check out this small town that has oil. So it's really about him going to that town and starting up this oil field, and the things that happen to him while he's trying to make it big in the oil business. And Paul Dano actually plays two characters, one Paul Sunday and two Eli Sunday, which is his twin brother. But fun fact, he originally was not supposed to play Eli Sunday, Paul Dano. Apparently there was another actor who was meant for that role. There were some rumors that he didn't get along with Daniel Day-Lewis, but he actually refuted this. I think things just did not work with him on set. I just don't think it was a good fit for him as an actor. And so they brought Paul Dano in to play both characters. But that's the brief synopsis. There's obviously a lot more that we will go into our spoiler discussion in a little bit. But what are some other things you liked about the film?
Like you said, he is an oil man, and he lets you know that constantly. So I just liked how, I think he was kind of a one-sided character. However, it's like how deep he was willing to go to that side is just something that it just kept you interested throughout, or at least to a certain point for me. This movie, I'll say right now, spoiler, is not going to receive a perfect score from me. So there's some things that keep it from it. But everything that this movie is loved for, I definitely agree with. This is a movie to be seen. It is somewhat of an epic. It goes through time. It goes through like almost like 20 years plus. And I like that. And I like to see the changes that went on, and to, you know, see where he was going to be at in however many years. Even though I could have probably went with another even further time jump near the end. But what we saw throughout his life, it was consistently interesting. Like I said, it was just one thing after the other.
I do think some of the time jumps felt a little strange. Especially because there's a long period of time where we don't have any kind of time jump at all. And then we'll get one all of a sudden. And it kind of felt a little abrupt to me, places. And in the beginning, I think we have like 3 time jumps at the very beginning. 2 or 3 that felt very rapid in succession. So yeah, they felt a little strange to me, but I also do like the story that was told with the time jumps.
Yeah, and I feel like the time jumps were really there more so for the son, and seeing the son, and you see him go from a baby to a kid to a grown-up, even though he doesn't have too much to do with the story. It's kind of one of the things that keeps him... I think he does, as far as he's like a symbolism for Daniel's humanity, for like the little bit of moral sense that he has. I saw the need for the kid, but this is very focused on Daniel. So much focus that, and we're kind of going into the trivia already, but this movie only has 2 scenes not showing Daniel in it, which is crazy because Daniel Day-Lewis, like, he's giving his all in these performances. I felt like I don't know if it was just me getting exhausted, or he was getting exhausted, or we both getting exhausted from his performance, but he was just giving everything, you know, and it kind of showed how much his character was working and how much strain he was putting on himself physically and mentally, that when you finally get to that point too with him, you definitely see it and you understand it.
And you talked about Daniel Plainview's son. I think that child also gave a very brilliant performance for what he had to do. I think for me, a child actor can make or break a film. I think there are some very, very, very talented child actors out there, and some directors that are very, very talented at directing child actors. You don't always get that. But for me, I think this child, I'd have to look up his name. Let me look up this actor's name really quick.
This is only a credited role. He was out of elementary school, and Paul Thomas Anderson was able to direct this kid. And a child's acting ability, yes, it does rely on a child. However, it relies so much on a director, and people don't understand that. You can tell that Paul Thomas Anderson is good with directing children. Just the way like this kid would stare at certain things and the way that he would walk, you could tell that this kid was not just doing it on his own.
Dylan Frazier is the name of the actor. I think I read something too that his mother was a little worried about having him interact so much with Daniel Day-Lewis, because the only thing she saw of him was Gangs of New York, which is a very violent movie, but then they managed to convince her of it. No, he's an okay guy. It's okay to put, you can let your son be on this film.
Yeah, they rushed her another movie of his, and I forget the title of it, but it was a nicer role where he wasn't killing a bunch of people. Another thing that this movie does, this is one of the things that was holding me up from watching it too, is the movie's about oil. Period piece. It's about a man going out there. Like he says, he's an oil man. That's what he does. He drills oil. I was actually getting kind of interested in the way they were drilling oil and the way the oil operation worked. I don't know. I was getting intrigued on that. Like kind of like watching the History channels, how they do it and things like that. They actually made that portion of it interesting as much as everything else that was going on in the film.
Well, I think it was very just visually interesting too. Just, there's a scene towards the beginning that shows him drilling the oil, and it does truly look like blood, and you can see him touching it in his hands, and just visually it looked like blood, and it was so menacing. There's some scenes in here that are just so menacing that have to do with that oil and the menacing aspect of oil. It was just very visually interesting.
How do you feel about the religion in this film?
So I think this touches on a lot of religious fervor really well. I like in movies when it's done like that. I like to see how religious fervor kind of plays out in films and shows. Some other movies on top of my head are The Mist, and TV show more recently, Midnight Mass. It's another one that kind of tackled on to like the whole idea of this cult-like environment when it comes to religion. And Paul Dano's performance as Eli Sunday, he is a priest in this film. His performance in giving his sermons was insane, and I felt uncomfortable watching. It was like uncomfortable and funny at the same time. Like this movie too, I think there's moments where it doesn't take itself too seriously all the time while still showing you the seriousness of the situation, and I think it did that really well.
Yeah, there were some absurd moments. It would pull me out for a second, and then it would get super serious and pull me right back.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, oh, did I see you crack a smile? No, run it back. Yeah, I like the religion. I thought it was going to play more of a role in this. And actually, because it played a lesser role, it actually, that in itself had meaning to this overall story. Something I actually looked up, and it's something we'll talk about during the spoiler portion, because I looked up someone doing analyzing the ending of this film. Yeah, Eli Sunday, Paul Dano as the preacher, as kind of a fanatic almost. And actually, I don't even think he went to that direction. You say it was cult-like. I think they actually pulled it back just far enough that it didn't get to that point of where it was cult-like. That's where I thought it was going to go, where they were all of a sudden, they were going to get all these people rallied up behind them, and they were going to go ahead and fight the capitalism and the oil man and things like that. But when he was doing his sermon and stuff, it's like things we've all seen the preachers do before, whether it be on our own churches, whether it be YouTube videos. It's stuff that we've seen the preachers do before. And it was all very realistic, especially when you think about it, these people have nothing else in their town except for religion until the oil man comes in there and brings something new to them. Yeah, I like how subtle it was as well. One question I did have though, I was wondering if this is supposed to be some kind of symbolism, is who was making Paul Dano's suits in that town? Because that man as a preacher, like he dressed like the devil. His stuff was mostly black.
Did.
It was very fitted. He always looked Weasley when he came by, like a shadow, just cracking past a twisted tree. It's like, who was like, is he doing this on purpose? And also, who is the
I think
tailor?
part of that is Paul Dano too, though. I think he just has a Weasley kind of look to him.
Yeah, the tailor looked at him and was like, I know your look. I got this.
Especially he wears a suit at the end that is a little bit more extravagant too, and the costume designer did a good job for him, I think.
It pulled me out because I was like, man, ain't no one in this town making suits like that. Everybody else is in like rags, and their Sunday best is like, our Monday's worst. I was like, that pulled me out. Again, that pulled me out for like a second, but then it's like, all right, let me go with it. I'm not going to fault the movie on that at all. It worked for the purposes that it needed to work.
How did you feel about this film from a visual point of view?
This is one of the films, and it always goes with most used sayings when you mention good film cinematography, and that is you can pause this movie at any moment and frame it and put it up on your wall, and it will look magnificent. And that goes for much of this film, I think. I think the cinematography was fantastic, and there were a lot of moments where the camera itself is stilled and things are still moving past it, and it still captures everything.
Yeah, I really love the camera work in this film. There's a couple things that I really noticed with it as I was watching. One was just the tracking shots I thought were amazing. Even in the still moments, we were panning over to doing a slow pan over to certain elements in the film, and it really redirected what we were viewing in that scene. I mean, obviously, but thematically, the camera told us what to do, I think, a lot of the times in this. It really kept us at a distance at times and then pulled us in other moments. There's a lot of scenes where two characters would be talking and we're given like a wider shot as they're talking. And it kind of holds us at a distance as an audience to observe this. Which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, so I thought the camera work was very much contributed to the themes of the film.
Yeah, I think the camera work it very much does the work for the audience. And hey, this is what you have to focus on. Like I said, there was a lot of moments where there was crowds and things that Daniel was talking to, but the camera started focused on him as he's giving his speech and as he's talking. But these things are going in the background, and even when it pans out, yeah, it shows them, but it doesn't show them for that long, and it goes right back to Daniel. And a lot of the cinematography, it was a lot of positions for the camera was a fly on the wall perspective that I liked as well.
I feel like it really contributed to kind of the desolation and the loneliness of the film, because I feel like, watching from a distance, I almost felt that like I wasn't part of anything that was going on. And I think Daniel, I think he was definitely on an island of his own in a way in this desolate area, and so I think it really magnified that idea.
Yeah, a lot of this movie it does a lot of the work for you, which is not a bad thing at all. It does a lot for you except for the writing. It's kind of like they set it up to, hey, focus on this because you need to listen to this. We're not going to explain it for you, so just look at this. Like, all right.
I don't know that I would agree that it does the work for you.
You say you disagree or agree?
I think I disagree. I don't feel like the camera was holding my hand through any situations. I think because it kept me at a distance, it was doing the exact opposite.
I think there were those distant shots, but it starts up focused in. Then it will branch out. Or not branch out. Then it will go ahead and zoom out.
See, I didn't think that. Like, if you look at the dialogue, there wasn't a lot of, over the shoulder shots, I noticed. Usually when you're having a dialogue between two people, you have a lot of over the shoulder shots. It makes you feel like you're part of a conversation where the camera's over one person's shoulder viewing the person in front of him that he's talking to. And there wasn't, I'd have to give it another watch, but I don't remember seeing many shots like that, which is, typical camera work in scenes like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. It was different. The way they shot the dialogue, probably something that kind of led to that tension with it. It was shot different and well done in that fact. I think that this movie so easily could have been a very dry
I don't think the camera work
piece,
told
but
you
the things
how
with the
to
dialogue
feel.
and the way that they were shot,
the way
that in
that
itself
it was
just
shot,
kept you
like I said, there was a
with
feeling
it.
of desolation and loneliness. I feel like I don't think they were holding my hand through it at all. I think that they wanted you to make your own conclusions about how you felt in those type of shots. And I think it was brilliant that the camera work allowed that. I think I mentioned some of the time jumps before. There were also, I think, one of the elements
Is there anything
in the
that you
story
didn't like
in
about
the
this film?
middle involves another character that comes in that I think there were elements of that I didn't like in the film, but I also understand why it had its purpose. but introducing a character midway through the film that I think it was important. I would say, I guess it's an important character in his development, but as outside of Daniel's development, it didn't really hold much importance. But introducing him halfway through the film, I think, was a little strange. I don't think I would say I disliked it, but it did change the tone a little bit for me in the middle. And then there's some stuff on the ending that I think we'll talk about. But I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, to be honest. We'll talk about it, like I said, in our spoiler discussion. Yeah, there's a couple elements that I'm a little on the fence about, but I think overall, absolutely love this film. I think it accomplished what it wanted to accomplish. I think it was well crafted. I think the performances were great. I think it was a story that interests me. Like I said, going into this, I knew that the story was going to interest me. Not that oil interests me. It's set in a time period that interests me, and it follows a character that is trying to make money. He's trying to make his way in the world, and he's trying to get power. I mean, absolute power corrupts, right? So I love stories like that. I absolutely love stories like that. So
yeah, the only thing really holding me back, kind of mentioned this with the complexity of his character. I felt like that complexity kind of left at a certain point. It wasn't even like he was spiraling down. It's just that he just went down. And while it was interesting to watch, I was definitely more interested to see what he would do next, especially to the people around him. But I think that pulled me away emotionally. Like the decisions he made after that, I'm just like, okay, yeah. Understand you are a corrupted, horrible person. It kind of reminded me of 2019 Joker. Kind of had the same issue for me, where it's like, all right, just watching this character just go mad. And it's not even like they're going mad to like increasing stakes. It's just that they're kind of steadily going to that ultimate darkness. And yeah, it is interesting to see certain aspects of that. I'm no longer fully immersed in this character. And like I said, this movie focuses on that character so much that he's only out of it for 2 scenes. So that's the only thing that pulled me away. Like I said, he's still an interesting character. I think this is more of a villain story than anything. That's the only thing keeping me from really giving it a perfect score, was that I lost that connection there. And I lost kind of the tension, at least within his character.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because of a length. I talked about Boardwalk Empire earlier. It has a similar story, but it covered that arc, that same kind of character arc in 5 seasons or 6 seasons. Might be 6 seasons. I could have watched a whole nother hour of this movie and been perfectly happy, to be honest. As long as it was, I did not feel that runtime at all. I could have kept watching, and I would have been happy.
I didn't feel the runtime at all for this, and I watched this movie late. I didn't finish this movie till 1 a.m. I didn't feel the runtime at all. I don't know if I would watch another hour. If I was to watch another hour, it wouldn't be to extend from the ending. I would have liked to seen an hour to bring more to his character within certain times. Just to add that
yes, I agree.
Complexity to him. Again, I keep saying that over and over again, but that's kind of the only place the movie really failed for me. No, I could definitely see a longer version of this. I could see a TV series of this just as easily. So what about the influence that this movie had? I honestly, from doing my research, I didn't see anybody really influenced from this, or at least anything I could find. Like I said, I could see I forget the director's name. I want to say Todd Phillips, for the Joker. I think there's still a lot to be learned from this film. I think like how to build suspense is a big thing. Like I said, they set up in the beginning of how things can go wrong while digging for oil at any time. I think the cinematography, you definitely learn some lessons there. And also, not everyone can direct children. Pulled this child with no acting ability and got him to do a great performance. Not an award-winning performance or anything like that, but he did his job well, because it could have easily pulled you out of this movie. But did you see anything in your research about what this film went on to influence, or do you think this should have some influence?
I think there is influence. I'm having trouble thinking right now. I'd be interested in seeing how this influenced Paul Thomas Anderson's later films. So as someone who really likes those films, what do you have to say about that?
Like I said, The Master has one of my favorite movie scenes in it, and it's just a conversation between Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman, 2 great actors, but it's just them talking. And I think in this is where he mastered that craft of how to create suspense and create that rise in tension just between 2 people talking. Even if you know that violence is not going to occur from these two people talking, that tension is still there. As far as like Paul Thomas Anderson for his future films, things like that, one of the reasons I love Paul Thomas Anderson is because he's going to do a film that he wants to do. His films, you can't find a usual tone in them. You can't find many similarities between his films other than the fact that they're great. After this, I want to say The Master was after this, but he's just a director that just gets better and better with time. Like every time he makes a new movie, he's just stepping up his game usually, or is still, making a great film. I know he worked with Daniel Day-Lewis again doing The Phantom Thread. That's a movie now I want to see even more. I really didn't have another interest in that because it was another story that I really don't have an interest in. It's about a tailor. I mean, I do have an interest, but not like I'm willing to, like I want to jump on that right away. But, hearing Paul Thomas Anderson and wanting to see more from Daniel Day-Lewis again, that is a movie that I'm going to go ahead and see again. See for the first time, hopefully soon.
Yeah, I was looking at that too. It's like I didn't really have any interest in it before, but now having watched this, I'm like, yep, I need to check that one out. I'm trying to think if there's any other period films that kind of took anything from this. I don't know. I wish that there were more period films that kind of were character studies. I'm trying to think if there's any. I don't know if you can think of any off the top of your head. I feel like period films are usually very plot driven in most instances. So seeing a character study in this time period is something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, so this actually does remind me of another film. And it's another film that has to do with oil. Probably going to be on the list for movies you need to see. It's called Giant. It's with Elizabeth Taylor and James Dean. And
so that
it's
was
a
before
film
this film.
way before this film. Way before this film. I think it was like the 60s. So not something 60s.
That this film influenced.
No, the other way around, possibly. So no, I can't see any movies. And granted, this was 2007, and this is a period piece. It's not like we're getting one of these every year about the oil and things like that. I would say, when people are trying to be influenced by this, it's not just doing a film about the oil industry. It's not about that at all. It's about the character. And it's not just about the simple corruption or the simple misuse of religion. It's subtle to all of that. And that's what, if a movie is going to be influenced by There Will Be Blood, if they want to be properly influenced by this, that's what they need to look at. Not just making a oil industry film.
Yeah, I definitely think I can see influences that went in this too. I mean, I think he's influenced by Scorsese, which is another director I wanna watch more films for. But he makes it its own, I think. Like there's a lot of character that went into this film that I would like to see in other films of his. Like I said, I haven't seen many Paul Thomas Anderson films, but it's definitely on my to-do list now after having seen this one.
Yeah, and I'll say, especially with his, there's definitely a variety to it. He just makes what he wants to make. Definitely, yeah. I'm glad you like this film, and I'm glad you want to see more Paul Thomas Anderson. It's gonna make it easier for me to push those episodes in now. Can't wait for Boogie Nights.
This actually just becomes a Paul Thomas Anderson podcast.
Yes, that's all it becomes.
So who would you recommend this movie to? Like, would you recommend this to, like, a general audience or cinephiles particularly? Or who would you recommend this to?
I would recommend this for the in-betweeners and up. I would not recommend this for a general audience. I think, this is something that may attract, certain audience, and they may not get the product that they thought they were going to get. They may not get that, just that standard corruption of power, oil man story. But I think this is something that once it grabs your attention, it's not going to let go. So I can see, like, if you're a person who's really looking for a good film, a good drama, then this movie's going to go ahead. It's going to pull you in, it's going to hold you, and it's going to make you interested in things that you did not know you were going to be, interested in. And I think, for cinephiles, we've already talked about, there's so much in this film to adore. Just the cinematography alone is going to be appreciated by anybody who's very much a lover of film. But if you want a film that follows a villain, a movie about the oil industry or the consumption of greed, and also if you're one of those people that's put in a film to prove to other people, to maybe that general audience, like, hey, dialogue can be just as thrilling as your blockbusters out there. And I think this is a movie that you can put in and you can show them that. Granted, you're going to have to tell them, hey, you got to clear your schedule because it's 2.5 hours. But yeah, that's who I would recommend the movie to.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. I think before I watched this, I had this idea that it was going to be a really bloody explosions, very action-packed film. And while it does have some of that, it's not the film that it is. It builds tension in other ways. So if you're looking for an action film, this might not be it, but at the same time, it's still going to have just as much suspense, even without the explosions and non-stop action.
Yeah, and I would even say, like, the action that you do get and the explosions that you get, somehow those are not your typical explosions and actions. Like, the fights that do occur in this, it's not going to be some kind of fist fight that you're just going to be in awe of it. No, it's just two men just kind of going, letting out their frustration. And the explosion, yeah, definitely cool, but it's not your big bang of an explosion at all. It's a very realistic explosion. I believe makes it all the more interesting. But again, I think that's where you kind of lose your general audience. You know, they probably want to see like that whole oil rig blow up and half the town gets leveled from the explosion blast and the mushroom cloud and shrapnel everywhere. You're not going to get that.
The train scene from Super 8.
Yes, exactly. No.
You know, that wasn't, like, I feel like even the actioning moments, it wasn't even the most intense part of the film to me. I think the most tension part of the film for me was in the very beginning of the film. And and there was other moments too, but I think what we didn't talk about before was the music in this film. I think the music adds so much tension, and there was a moment in the beginning where it was just non-stop music and tension, and it felt so uncomfortable. It was so intense, and I loved it.
Yeah, the score definitely builds up the tension, but the thing is, the score, it doesn't let you know when the tension is going to be there, because it doesn't exactly have a rhythm. It's not like after a couple seconds you hear something bad's going to happen. No, it can just continue and continue on, and you're just on the edge of your seat because you're like, I know something's going to happen. I know it. And you're like, oh, nope. Music's still going. It's still building up. So again, it just keeps you at that suspense. So this part of our operation, it's not so much for those with the need to know. This is kind of open up to the public. We talked to our PA officer. They said, hey, no, go ahead, share this with them, share it with the people. It's fine. However, we do have, the need to know, the classified documents that we are going to have to talk about so we can, move forward with this operation. Caitlyn, do you have anything to say for that general audience out there that doesn't have that authorization to proceed forward with the spoilers?
I'm going to say, go watch it. Clear out your schedule. It's worth it. It's worth the 3 hours. Just go watch it. Go watch it. There's a lot to talk about in this film. There's a lot of thematically. There's a lot of discussion to be had about the spoiler section. So go watch it, come back, join us in the discussion, and I think you'll probably get something out of it.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. If you have this, what I would say is, I may not say rush out and go see this movie. This may not be the top of my list to say, hey, you need to see this right now. However, I would say that, hey, if this is at any time on your list, or you're like, man, I should really get around watching this, yes, stop what you're doing. Don't put in that, that easy 90-minute movie that you just want to get out of the way. Go ahead, take this on. You will enjoy it. It is more than you think it is. Just
make sure you have plenty of snacks for 3 hours. You might get hungry.
It's only 2. Is it 3 hours? What was it, 2 hours and 40 minutes or 2.5?
If it's over 2.5 hours, it's just 3 hours to me. My brain goes, oh yeah, that's a 3-hour movie.
That's true. And still, like I said, I watched Giant, and Giant was over 3 hours. Watched Cleopatra too, which was like 5 hours. So there's some times there. But all right, let's go ahead and open up this top secret case file. And the first thing, so everyone, if you don't know what that means, top secret, it means, all right, we're getting into the spoilers. And trust me, you do not want to hear the spoilers for this movie. Go ahead and watch it. Like I said, it's one thing after the other with this movie. So stop listening right now. Go ahead, watch the movie, and come back to us. So Caitlyn, before we really get hard into the spoilers, I'm guessing you agree with the critics on this one. Because I for sure, I do. I agree with everything the critics are saying about this movie. I think this is one of the best movies of the 21st century, and one of the must-see films just in general. This should be up on people's lists. It deserves the awards and the nominations that it won Daniel Day-Lewis does deserve the praise that he does. I'm not sure if I'll put him in my favorite actors list because there's not too many films with him, but I could say that he is one of the best actors that have ever been in film, just from watching this. The man devoted a lot of his time into the method acting, and it paid off. He made a character that I think is just, he's going to be a character that just sticks with me. You know, writing my own stories and thinking about my own characters, this is something that, you know, I would definitely look back at.
Yeah, this is why I think you would like Boardwalk Empire, because seeing the parallels between his character and the main character of Boardwalk Empire was very fascinating to me. Daniel Plainview, he has a soft spot for his adopted son, HW, and it humanizes him. There's a sort of humanization in his relationship with this character that goes away about midway through the film, and I think it touches upon one of the themes that is presented with the title There Will Be Blood, which is such a loaded title. And I think that's why I love this film, and I agree with the critics, because there's so much that can be unpacked just from the title alone in analyzing this film. There's so much to go into, and I love that. I love that I can sit here and talk about that. I think that there's a lot of films that, you know, you only get a surface level understanding, and there's not as much reoccurring things happening thematically in it. I think this was a very smart film, and I don't think he held your hand through it or anything. I think there's a lot that you have to go and discover for yourself, and I love that. So yeah, I would say I agree with the critics on this one.
No, I definitely agree with that. Like I said, with the hand holding, I thought that was just alone with the cinematography, with focusing on the characters. I think everything else, yeah, this is a film that is cleverly written, which is based on a book. However, Paul Thomas Anderson only read the first 150 pages, which I have to respect as a person who got by in high school doing the same thing. He made a great film and then made something pretty much his own in that right. So this is a rather recent movie. You know, when you think about film, it's only one decade before, and not even a full decade past. Do you think this film is going to hold up in time?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things it has against it, though, is just it's a very male-driven perspective. There's not very many female characters that get to have any word in this. And as far as the plot goes, they're almost non-existent to it. I think there's one character that might have a line or two. So it doesn't have that going for it. But I think the themes, they're not going away. I mean, it's always going to be a cautionary tale. As far as power and money goes, I mean, that's something that it's going to endure.
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to hold up in time. I think, yeah, you don't really have that woman representation in there, but you really don't have that representation of anyone else. I don't think you can blame the film because it is focused on this one character. It's not like we had all these other characters being introduced and none of them were from any particular group. Yeah, there were some side characters that were brought in. Yeah, with this just being focused on that character, yeah, this is a topic that's always going to be there. This is the topic to the end of time. You know, greed, corruption, religion, family, that sort of thing. That's always going to be a topic. That's never going to be solved, and it's going to be constantly debated, and it's something that people are going to be constantly interested in. You know, like I said, the movie Giant, 1965, a similar movie to this. Hey, that was a movie in 1965, still a movie that can be appreciated today.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the themes in it, because I mean, go into a little bit more of the spoilers and the things that are brought up in this. I keep talking about the title, There Will Be Blood, and blood has so many meanings to this. Like, not only just the literal blood, there is some level of violence, especially towards the end of the film, but blood also symbolizes oil. Oil is a way of life here. It makes things move. It brought life into this land. Blood symbolizes the oil. Also for blood, we have that family ties. Family is something that he has stated he very much wants. There's elements of family all throughout this movie with HW, and also with the pseudo-brother character that comes up for Daniel Plainview halfway through the film. So blood very much relates to family as well. And also, if you're talking about the religious aspect, there was a moment in the film where they used the hymn. I forget the name of the hymn per se, but the line in it is, "There is power in the blood of the lamb," and it just fits so perfectly in the film. So I think this idea of blood, it has so many meanings, and not what I originally thought, which was just that it was just going to be about violence. What I originally thought going into the film. So I was so pleasantly surprised, but there were so many things to unpack there.
The title interested me as well. I wasn't thinking that this was going to be really an action-y film. Like I said, I was actually kind of wondering where the blood was going to show up in this film. Probably because I know Paul Thomas Anderson's other films, they can get violent, but it doesn't really make just violent throughout stories. This is actually probably his most violent one. And even this isn't a tale of violence so much. Violence, ensues, but that's just how he moves forward with it. I know also with the There Will Be Blood, the font is a biblical font as well. So those religions do kind of, like I said before, it doesn't seem like it plays a huge part in this film. It's not as present, but when you start looking at the things and why the religion is there, it starts to show, how prevalent it actually is. But yeah, it's a great title.
It is. I was really impressed by it. I think another thing that this film really brought up, and I was looking a little bit more into, was just the power of his voice. We see that he's a great orator. He gets by with his words and with manipulation in the same way that Paul Dano does in his church as a preacher. So they're kind of similar to each other in that way. So halfway through the film, when HW deafened by the explosion, not only is it a blow to him for what this family dynamic that he has with HW, but it's also a blow because he starts to lose his power of his voice and the power he has through his words when HW can no longer listen to him, can no longer be manipulated by that.
Now that you mentioned that, yeah, that definitely makes sense of how powerful his words are. When his son loses the hearing, son goes off the rails. Another thing with the voice is throughout it, his voice is pretty much the same. Whether he's drunk, passed out, old, grumpy, whatever, his voice basically stays the same. However, Paul Dano's character, Eli Sunday, his voice changed a lot. He tried to talk as this man, as the prophet of God, and he just turned into a squeaky little child when a threat was present to him, when he no longer had the authority in the situation. Yeah, his voice just cracked and everything, and that kind of I was kind of wondering that while I was watching it, why they went that route. But now that you mentioned the power of the voices and everything, it makes a lot more sense.
What did you think of the appearance of the brother in the film, or the character that was pretending to be Daniel's brother?
I liked the introduction of the brother. And I know you say that you weren't really too fond of that, especially because it was a late introduction. I was already, in terms with this movie, of there's kind of like these multiple plots that all build up to this one story, because it's more of an epic. So the brother was just another part of the Odyssey for him. And I think the brother, without that son present anymore, that took him forward another step that he had to go. And if you want to look at it, in a biblical sense as well, the brother killing his brother, or the brother killing someone who is being false to what he actually was, you can look at it from there. Honestly, that just now occurred in my head, but I can see, looking into it some more, I could see some connections being made there. I like the brother. I like the actor. I was actually glad to see him again. I was like, the last time I saw him was The Mummy, so it was interesting to see him again.
Oh, okay, that's who that was. I thought he looked familiar.
Playing a weasel in both films.
Yeah. I think it came back to show once again that family was kind of what he wanted, or what he thought he wanted, and to have that ripped away yet again after he already went through what he went through with HW, I think was an extra added blow. I do think it was a little predictable where it was going with that story, and I feel like there wasn't as much consequence as I was expecting to him murdering his brother. I think his name's Henry or something. Is it Henry?
Yes, Henry. Okay, yeah, just Henry.
That I would have liked to seen, but I understand why it was there.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't see it coming when it first was introduced. I was like, man, how easy is it to falsify documents? I guess I'm just reading into it too much. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm going with it. And then when he revealed himself, and whether you think it was predictable or not, I think one of the great things is the way that it was revealed, and seeing, hey, he kind of did actually, he wanted that life, even though he didn't work for it. And I think with the family, it is interesting with the family, because he does say multiple times, I'm a family man. This is a family business. However, he has no family. And maybe that's why when he loses that, but he doesn't even try to keep a hold of it. If it's not blood, it's nothing to him, as he makes clear even to HW later on, which was a heartbreaking scene for HW's character. And I think that was his, I think that was like his kind of his ultimate moment. A lot of people talk about the milkshake scene, but I think that scene right there, him telling you just a sweet face. Yeah, bastard in a basket, and just a sweet face that he was using to get by for what he really wanted, which was, it wasn't the blood of the family that he was looking for, it was the blood of the land that he was truly looking for, and it was just lying to himself the whole time.
I do think he did love HW in his own way. I think the problem happened when, after he is deafened, he no longer idolizes Daniel, and I think that goes back to the religious aspect, is that he no longer viewed him as his, like, god, someone that he could idolize, and so once that changed, Daniel's perception of HW changed, and he sees him as competition at the end.
Yeah, as he said, I see I have that competition in me, and eventually I see everybody as my enemy. So it makes me wonder too, like, if he did actually have the family blood, would he have been a different person?
I don't think so. I would have been the same.
I'm not too sure how to feel about it, because even after his moment with Henry, he's looking at the photos and everything. He started weeping. Yeah, you could tell that, it was heartbreaking to him. He did want things to work out with him.
I think he used the lack of a blood relationship as an excuse for how he acted at the end. But I think that's all it was. I think it was just an excuse. I think if he had a son by blood, it would have been the same way, because he really just wanted someone that he can control, someone that he could be in power of, someone that would idolize him. He wanted to see himself in this person to give himself meaning, and once he loses his control of that, it doesn't matter if he's blood or not, it's going to be a problem for him.
Yeah, and that could be because he very much controls. He thinks that if he controls the blood, he can control the person, he can control the land, which is why he would never sell to another person, because he never wants to lose that control. So yeah, I can see that I think with his family, it wouldn't really change him as a person, but he would be able to control that individual. And without that blood relation to HW and to Henry, he eventually saw the competition and saw the hatred he had for the individual.
That was a heartbreaking scene for poor HW at the end. Oh, there was a lot of heartbreaking scenes for HW. Kid had it rough.
I wouldn't say I was too heartbroken from it. It was definitely an emotional scene, but just not like having been with HW for too long. It was just more of like that. I think that was like the final realization, like, yes, this man is beyond redemption at this point.
My heart broke, especially during the whole explosion when he was deafened. And when he left him on the train, I don't know, my heart broke for HW. I felt it. I don't think I needed more time. My heart was with HW.
My heart broke when he did lose his hearing and he got blown back, because I felt like this was a kid that was put in a situation that he wouldn't be there if his father kind of cared a little bit more. Because even so, like, I get it, you have to take care of the explosion and everything, but once the explosion is done for and he realizes, oh, I got oil, I got that blood that I was looking for, he doesn't care about HW anymore. Like, yeah, he made sure he's safe, but once the explosion, like, died down, he was like, all right, oh yeah, I have a son, don't I? Whatever.
I think he cared a little bit more than what you're saying. I think part of him did care, and I think that's what makes it even worse. What he does to him is that I think there is a part of him that did really care for him.
I think there is a part that really did care for him, but I think he cared about the oil more. Mm-hmm. And also, I can't blame him too much for leaving him on that train.
That was so sad.
Yeah, but now I can't blame him so much for leaving him on the train, because he did need professional help somewhere. Because obviously it wasn't just his hearing that went wrong. He obviously, something changed, and whether it was just the losing the hearing that made him angry, or he suffered a concussion. Like I said, this is there will be head trauma in this movie that made his son to be more of a violent person. But that scene where he could have sold the company and been with his son and chose not to, yeah, that man was right in telling him, like, you can take this all right now and go be with your son if you truly loved him, which he didn't, which he felt bad for, but still, it is what he is. He may have felt bad for his actions, but he still took those actions. Because I do think he did care for him when he was like saying, I abandoned my son, and he's getting slapped around by Paul Dano. I think that was, yeah. You can tell that he cared for his son.
There's a lot of slapping around in this movie.
Oh, there's so much slapping around. That's why I was saying before. I'm like, this maybe not the action movie you're looking for, because even the fights, like, you're just slapping them, just, gah, gah. And it was just to kind of show that, like, man, Eli Sunday is just kind of a punk. Like, he can't even take a slap. Like, he's a child. Even, like, so much like he was a child, like, this kind of, like, small little chin hairs going on, I noticed in the movie.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the definition of my TV, if that was on purpose, intentional, and they just forgot to clean him up. But yeah, he just kind of had like this childlike peach fuzz on him. And like the only people that he could bring were those that were down on their knees or old men. Which is, you know, I like to talk about the religion aspect of this as well. And I was reading up something. I'll go ahead and actually quote the article, because I'll be honest, this is the only one I looked for. The only one I read for the ending of this film, and it came from Collider.com for There Will Be Blood ending. It made a lot of sense, in which case the third revelation was actually Daniel. Because the third revelation, you know, the first revelation is the commandments. The second revelation, I believe, was Jesus.
In the Bible?
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, in the Bible. So, you know, first is when he handed the commandments to Moses. The second is Jesus teaching to man. And the third is any man filled with the Holy Spirit and says he's imbued with the powers and teachings of God. And in this film, what it shows is that it shows that at this point in time in history, when oil and the industry were coming up, religion wasn't playing as much of a role as it did before. Religion still had a great effect on things, but it was starting not to become the movement of powers. Not many people were moving on religion as much. Now you had this new force out there. You had this oil that was wanted nationally and eventually globally. And oil was the thing that was truly controlling the world. It wasn't the power of God, it was the power of the land. It was the blood of the land. And Daniel's character was the one that was actually controlling that. He's the one that was actually shipping the blood and spreading it. And he was the one with that power and that ability to make change. He was even able to make Eli confessed that he was a false prophet and that God is a superstition. That wouldn't have been able to work the other way. No one at this time would have been able to actually take religion and make somebody give up all their money and all their oil for religion. It was at this point now, things have turned. Capitalism could now influence religion rather than religion influencing capitalism. And like I said, I took some of this from the article and some making my own inferences from the movie itself. Curious because like I said, the religion doesn't play too much of a part in this film, but that in its own way is the meaning of it. It's like, yeah, religion is no longer the moving force of this country.
Another tie back to religion with the final line in the film, which I also want to talk to you about, when he says, I'm finished. It kind of goes back to the Jesus saying it is finished. That was my immediate thought when he said that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And but I also saw some things that it kind of goes back to his power that the movie is allowed to finish when he says it does. So there was a couple things that I took from that final line and that final scene. And so I was kind of wondering what your takeaways from the final scene and line was.
So I'm finished. I saw that as like him just being done with life, because there's that scene where he's talking to Tilton and he tells him, he's like, what do you expect me to do if I sell all my oil? It's like, what am I supposed to do afterwards? So I think when he says I'm finished, like he's just like, dude, I'm done at this point. I have nothing left. He separated himself from anything that could be possible family. He got rid of HW. Eli at this point was his brother-in-law. He got rid of Henry. He was drunk and just shooting up things in his house. The only people that came to visit him was HW, who he kicked out. So I think when he said, I'm finished, it was him just going like, yeah, I'm done. I proved my point. I got what I wanted. What else is there to life?
I don't think there was quite a resignation from it, though. Like, I didn't feel like there was any remorse or sadness, really. Or at least I didn't gain that. I mean, I think there might be some smidging of remorse in there, but he doesn't ever really, there's no ever consequences, I think, for his actions that we are fully tangible in the film. I mean, obviously, HW leaving is a consequence. Other than that, I don't think we see too much happening. I mean, he still ends up very successful. He still ends up rich. He's just lonely. He's just completely desolate from the rest of everyone else.
Yeah, and I don't think there was any remorse when he said, I'm finished. I don't think there was any sadness to him being finished. Like I said, he got everything he wanted. He had the house. He had the power. He proved that Eli was not a prophet. Never gave that man his $5,000, by the way, which I thought was ridiculous. I'm like, you couldn't. I'm like, at this point, it's like a nickel to him. And yeah, I don't think there was any of that, but I think when he said, I'm finished, like, he was done. Like, it may not have been his time to go in life, but I think that was even, another, like, power move in it where he's just like, I'm finished. I'm done. Like, what is there for him to do next? He can't become... It's not like he was talking about becoming more powerful. There wasn't a next step up. He controlled everything. Even the land that he didn't control, he stuck his straw in and he drank that milkshake. And he was, there was nothing, I think there was just nothing left for him. And he was making his own call that I'm finished. But I see what you're saying too, again, because it is a biblical story as well. It can be that Jesus, saying I'm finished. This is kind of, I do agree with the article I read with him being the third revelation.
What do you feel about the ending for Eli Sunday?
I mean, I'm always down for seeing a preacher using fanatics and radicalization, or whatever you want to call it. I'm making up words. But I'm always down to see a preacher admit that they are a false prophet and then get taken out. Now, granted, I didn't think the guy should have been bludgeoned to death with a bowling pin, but to see him bow down to oil, to capitalism, all of that, as powerful as this man thought he was, he couldn't get $5,000 from this man. He couldn't do that. But yet he thought he was this great person. He thought he was the son of God. He went and sinned as well. He didn't understand the teachings of the Lord as well. He thought he was all above that. So I'm all for people who think people who need to be knocked down a notch. I'm down for it. Now, being knocked down a notch via bowling pin, Also, I didn't understand how he got knocked out. That bothered me because he hit him in the back, not the head, the way that it was edited. But, served this purpose.
Was there ever a moment you thought that Paul and Eli Sunday were the same character?
Yeah. Who would it? Because they did not mention identical twin brothers at all. So, and then he started talking about Paul, and I was like, is Paul like his evil side, like his Draco in this scenario? And I say Draco because I met someone who referred to their evil tendencies, their negative tendencies, as Draco.
As Draco?
Yes, and that was for an actual case. That kid was interesting. But yeah, I was like, maybe Paul is the same. Remember doing one of those type deals?
I think I thought that for the entire movie.
I thought that until Daniel finally said, yeah, you know where Paul's at right now? Even though he said he gave him $10,000, but I didn't think he gave him $10,000. I think he only gave him $1,000 or something. Or he may have given him $10,000 later on. But I think he was saying your brother knew what to do. Paul knew to come to me. He actually knew what the real power was here. And it wasn't with you guys and wasn't in that religion. And Daniel respected him. He respected Paul. He didn't respect Eli.
Well, I think he respected Paul because he respected Daniel to a degree. I definitely thought they were the same person until, like you said, that final line. I questioned it up until then, and there was just so much that didn't. It was very strange. Like I said, he wasn't originally supposed to play Eli. Paul Dano wasn't originally supposed to play Eli, so it was an interesting change. But I think it did it for the better.
I don't know. I feel like if they casted a different Paul, we could have got the same thing from the story. Or at least they could have done that, but maybe worked some more of the dialogue around it. Because I felt it was just kind of too... The confusion that we had didn't serve any purpose. We were just confused.
I don't know. I think it greater emphasizes that comparison that he makes at the end. I think if it had been two different actors, the beginning with Paul would have just been a throwaway moment. But I think you keep thinking about it and how this triggered this event because you keep seeing him. I don't know, I think it served a purpose. I don't know if I can fully go into all of it right now. I'd probably have to do a little bit more research, maybe give it another watch, but I definitely think it served a purpose.
What if Daniel was Paul all along?
Daniel was Paul?
Shamalama twist. But yeah, I think, and one thing at first I thought the theme of this was, until like I read the article and started thinking about it more in the biblical sense, I thought this was kind of a theme of karma as well. Because at first I thought this was being pro-religion, because things did start going to the oil rig that was not blessed, to the well that was not blessed. Things started going wrong really quick for that unblessed well. But things weren't going too well for the church. It's not like church was being built up, but I felt like every time Daniel did something horrible, he ended up paying for it in some sense. And just because he was a cruel man in life, yeah, he got what he wanted through cruelty, it ended in a desolate life, like you said.
So what would you give your overall rating of this film?
I mean, I would give it an A. Like I said, the only thing keeping me from giving it an A plus is that the A plus is kind of lost that connection to the character. Like I said, the tension was always there, but it was not there for him himself. I wasn't really too surprised with the way he acted. I didn't know how something was really going to affect him because there was nothing even changing his mind at all. It's like, all right, this is who the character is. This is how they're going to proceed. So I kind of lost that emotional dynamic for the main character that we were focused on, but it's still an amazing film. That, like, me saying that I lost that emotional connection to him is so minute. It's so little. Like, it really is. It's just one of those things. Keep it from perfect. Like, keep it from like inch right there. And then I'll just say, like, kind of overall with the story, it is an immersive story, but it's nothing extravagant. It's nothing we necessarily haven't seen before. This time it's just done in a much better direction, made better.
I would say it's A plus for me. I think the only thing that prevents me from going S tier is that I wish we did have a little bit more time to develop towards the end how he became that instead of a time skip. But I think if a movie is making me want more and it's already almost 3 hours long, then that's definitely also a plus. So I can't fault it really. But it has all the elements I like. Like I said, it has all those connections to... There's similarities to Boardwalk Empire, which I said is one of my favorite shows. So for me, the personal interest was there already. Just the time period I think is fascinating. I like that I can sit here and just come up with more stuff, and I know I'm going to be thinking about it even after this is wrapped, just because it has so much into it. There's so much depth to it and so much complexity and so much themes that you can sit and analyze, and I love that. So it's an A plus for me.
Yeah. So everybody listening, I mean, if you're on this portion, probably you most likely or should have already seen the movie. If not, hey, you heard the things we're talking about. Even if you heard all the spoilers, just seeing the way that it develops and again that dialogue and how that tension is built. By all means, go ahead and watch this film. But I'm very happy that we watched this film. This was a great movie. It's one of those I've been meaning to strike off my list for one of my favorite directors, Paul Thomas Anderson again, who wrote and directed this film, who adapted it. I want to go ahead and give some credit to the source material here because it was originally from the novel Oil, ! All right, Oil, by Upton Sinclair.
Also props to the director-photographer. It was Robert Elswit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I wonder if I've seen him in other things.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to look and see what else he's done because visuals, amazing. I'll definitely have to be looking that up. Like I said, go watch it. Even if you listen to all of this spoiler review, we can't even begin to touch on the tension that's in this film, the sense of uneasiness, the sense of isolation that's created with the film. It's truly well crafted. You don't have to care about the oil industry to like this film. Go watch it. That's all I'm saying. I loved it. Yeah,
this was a task, of course, done successfully. Watched the movie, but it was a task that can't really call it a task. I enjoyed it through and through. Enjoyed the discussion. So, Caitlyn, for our further tasks and objectives into our operation, where can they find us?
They can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those is OpSilverScreen. It's going to be in our description for our podcast, so make sure it's there. Mention us, reply to us, tell us what you thought about this film. We'd be glad to hear it. If there's things that you notice that maybe we miss, if you have other opinions that you disagree or agree with on us, just let us know. We'd love to hear it. We're also on Facebook at Operation Silver Screen. You can find us there. Like I said, all of our social media our handles will be linked in our description. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks. So is this officially wrapped?
This is officially wrapped. Debrief at a close.
Alright guys, well I hope you tune into our next mission and make sure you have a box of tissues ready because Bryant and I are tackling the animated war drama Grave of Fireflies. Until then, I hope you guys are having a great start to your new year.
See you guys.